Bloomfield Hills is home to some of the wealthiest families in America and home to one big-time con artist. Frank Joseph saw wealthy families as potential victims, but now he says he wants to pay back society. Frank Joseph's sitting down to tell you a story.
It's been a roller coaster, through my life, with ups and downs, and done things. It's from everything from being a police officer to ending up in a federal prison.
One that's hard to believe, and one this law enforcement official says you should not believe.
I'd stay away from Frank. I mean, I wouldn't have anything to do with him.
Frank Joseph has spent most of his life trying to convince people of something, and by his own account, much of it has been a scam.
I got nothing to hide, nothing to, conceal. I guess it's putting it all out there.
This is the Frank Joseph people saw on the outside. Ski trips and cigars, motorcycles and meetings with big shots across the globe. Profits and promises of payoffs for investors. But it was all a facade, a massive multi-million-dollar Ponzi scheme where he paid for his own lavish lifestyle with other people's investment money. It led to victims losing a fortune and a prison sentence for Joseph.
I was indicted for 39 counts for money laundering, wire fraud, mail fraud. It was probably one of the lowest points in my life.
He spent 5.5 years locked up away from his family. And in that time, he says, he figured out why he did it. He was depressed.
Manic depression is something that's biological. It's a chemical imbalance in the brain.
Joseph says it can be debilitating to the point you are physically ill.
It's claimed a lot of lives, good and bad. There's a lot of people that are suffering with it from all walks of life, from every color, every race.
He says he would fake going to work and sleep all day. Then to make money, he would con people. He says many depressed people commit suicide. Others act out violently.
And somebody comes to work with a gun or wants to do something where they want to end their life and go out and to be famous, saying I'm depressed and I want other people to suffer like I suffered.
He says now he's going to use his experience to help others.
Getting into doing some life coaching, helping people with the struggles I've had for the last 45, 50 years.
Before they commit crimes like he did.
I'm not looking for pity. I'm not looking for a pat on the back. I'm looking for somebody's hand that I can grab and help pull them up and say, I've been there.
But is it a second chance or a new con? Before his latest stint in jail, Joseph put out this pamphlet called The Frank Joseph Story, telling how he went from policeman to preacher to prison. All vivid stories to promote him as a now reformed motivational speaker.
This is typical Frank Joseph. I've known Frank for many, many years. Frank is a con artist. I don't know, maybe he's changed his ways, I don't know, but the Frank Joseph I know and that we all know is nothing but a con artist.
Mike McCabe is the undersheriff at the Oakland County Sheriff's Office. He went to grade school with Frank Joseph and says his story is a lie.
Frank is apparently making some claims that he was the youngest deputy ever hired in the Oakland County Sheriff's Office. That's not true. Frank was hired as a paraprofessional in 1976, which is the equivalent of a police cadet. He had no police powers.
He says Joseph never worked patrol, despite a photo of him writing a ticket in his promotional material. McCabe says Joseph did work the county jail, but was fired a short time later.
While he was working in the jail, he was charged criminally with an assault on an inmate.
Joseph tells of failures, faith, and redemption in his Frank Joseph story, but then still went out and pulled his biggest con of all time. The feds say he swindled friends and neighbors out of $2.7 million. Joseph says the 5.5 years in prison taught him to never steal again.
I had a lot of friends that, were caught up in my mess, and you sit back and look at it and says, well, I'm getting tired about me. Now it's time to give back, and said, what can you do to make things better?
He says he can only give back to the community by helping them understand and treat depression.
To actually sit down and have a conversation with you instead of just loading up the suitcase with your prescriptions and leaving, to say, hey, maybe I don't need this much. Maybe I don't need to be this, catatonic.
While local law enforcement say to be weary of getting into business with Joseph, he says his days of conning people are behind him. He plans to help people from now on and to prove himself one day at a time. Kevin Dietz, Defenders.